Hello everyone, my name is Peter McCleavery and I'm one of the solution architects here at Geocom. If you're watching this video, you would have heard the news that our cloud network drive solution is soon to be end of life. So as part of this, we want to create a short video to run through a couple of options on how to and where to move this data. So the first option I want to run through is to move this data to an Azure solution, specifically within an Azure storage account in Azure Files. Now, Cloud Network Drive actually sits within an Azure Files solution anyway, so keeping this a very similar structure would be a very good alternative option. A second option is to use something like SharePoint Online. Now, most of your users will have a 365 license that probably includes SharePoint and SharePoint data, so as a cost-effective solution, this could be an option as well. Now, I do understand that some customers will have complex file structures and moving to a solution like SharePoint may not be supported. So if you need any more assistance with this, you can contact the team at the Azure practice and we'll be happy to jump on a call and run through your specific scenario. So as a high level, just to run through some of the options available, let's have a look in a bit more detail at those two options. So the first thing I want to do is navigate to the Cloud Market portal to navigate to my share. So if I go to the Cloud Market portal, go to Manage Services, click on Cloud Network Drive, and then click on the customer or customers that I may have with this solution. I will then see a drive summary report with my share details, the amount of SKU and gigabytes that I have, and the allocated space. If I go to drive management, I will then see all of my different drives with all my different partitions. Now I might just have one, as I have as my example here, or I might have partitioned this out into multiple different shares. Now that's absolutely fine. If you've done that, you don't need to migrate them into one central share. We can just do this multiple times when migrating that data. The other thing you'll notice is when you've created your Cloud Network Drive solution, you would have given your users local credentials. Now, moving off of the Cloud Network Drive, you'll no longer be able to use or support those local credentials. So you will need to move to an alternative solution, and we can run through that in a bit more detail at the end of the video. So once I've jumped onto the Cloud Market portal, gone to Drive Management, if I haven't already, I want to authenticate to that share to move and locate the folders and files. So if I go to Drive Management, drop this down, under Actions, Get Link, and copy this link that I can map to my file share. Once I've done that, I will see the share here on the left, my folders and my files that sit within that share. So let's look at the options in a bit more depth. So the first option I mentioned was to use an Azure storage account and Azure Files. So I'll need to create an Azure subscription within the Cloud Market, and then once I've done that, I should see that subscription within this subscription link here. So if I go to portal.azure.com, authenticate with my global admin, and then go to subscriptions, I should see that subscription here. Now mine says Pete subscription, but yours will say Microsoft Azure within your customer's tenant. Once you've done that, if you go back to Home, locate and navigate to Storage Accounts, and you'll want to create a new storage account for this solution. Now I'll quickly highlight some of the options here. So the first option is to select a subscription. So this is the one that we've created within the Cloud Market. Select an existing resource group, or if it's your first time, create a new one and give it a logical name. This could be something like storage-resource group. Give it a storage account name. Select the region. Select your performance tier. Now, if you want to replicate what's in your current storage account with Cloud Network Drive, keep this as standard. And also change the redundancy from geo-redundant to locally redundant. Now, if you do want to set up some additional redundancy options to have this data replicated across maybe multiple locations, you can select an option that is more relevant to you and your customer. Just note that pricing can range between each redundancy option. Once you've gone through the basics tabs, there's other multiple different tabs here which will run through and you'll be able to select options with each. So from advanced to networking to data protection, encryptions, and eventually tax. Once you've finished all of this, it will ask you to review, and if there's anything missing or not validated, you'll get this error as you see here with a location on where to go back to. I've already created an example of this, so I'll navigate to that now. So if we go to that storage account that I created earlier, what we'll then want to do is, so first thing we'll notice is we see the details within the storage account. So the performance tier, the replication option that I selected, and I've got a few different options. So a storage account can support multiple different file structures. So you've seen here you've got containers for blob data, file shares, which is the option that we want to use for this scenario, queue storage and table storage. So for this I just want to select file shares. Now again, I've created a share earlier that I can select, but I can also create a new share. So going back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of multiple partitions, if I've got multiple partitions for my customer, I can create those partitions as different shares within this menu here. So let's create a new one. Let's call this test share 02. And I can also create the tier as well. So by default, what you probably want to go for is hot, but there are other tier scenarios that will reduce or increase the price of your share depending on which option you select. There's a little explanation under each of these options, but if you need more assistance, please get in contact and we'll be able to run through this in a bit more detail on a one-to-one basis. For this example, I'm going to use a hot share and select create. And you'll see within seconds that's created that share. Now another thing you'll notice is the default quota for these shares are 5 terabytes. Now what you can do, if you've provisioned between a 100 and 1 terabyte share within the cloud network drive and you want to replicate this capacity, I can click on the ellipsis on the right, click on edit quota and change this to a quota that matches my cloud network drive. So let's change this to 1000 GIB. And you see again, within seconds, this changes automatically. So once I've created my share, let's click into the share. And what I can do here is start uploading the data from my cloud network drive share over to my Azure subscription share. I can do this by clicking upload. It will then eventually load up where I can select my folders and files to migrate this data to. So I can browse for those files. And then once loaded, I can select the share, select each folder and upload these files to that share. Now you may have multiple, tens or hundreds of different folders with lots of different files. So to make this easier, there is a client that you could use called Azure Storage Explorer, and I'll link that in the description. And within this, you can authenticate to your share and then do a mass bulk upload to your Azure file share, just to make it a lot simpler. Again, the Azure practice team are here to assist. So if you need any help doing this, we'll be happy to do that. And what you'll notice is once that's done, if I go back to browse, all of those files are within this share. What I want to do maybe then is connect to it. So I can connect to this share, give it a drive letter. My authentication method, so at the minute this is either storage account key, so the name of the storage account plus one of the access keys, or I can do this with Active Directory if I've got a customer with ADDS. If I haven't, or I just want to use the storage account key, I select the storage account, I can show the script, and then I can copy this in PowerShell to authenticate to the share. Alternatively, I can use this, which is the share location, which is similar to the link I have with my cloud network drive. I would then copy the storage account name, which I can find if I go back to access keys. Copy the storage account name as the username and then show and paste one of the keys in to authenticate each user back to the share. So that is option 1. Option 2 is to use SharePoint. Now what I can do is create a SharePoint site and upload these data and these documents to that SharePoint site. Now again, I can do that manually by clicking folders of files, or if I've got a lot of data, what I might want to use is a tool. And there's a tool called the SharePoint Migration Tool that I can use to migrate bulk amount of data from my Share over to SharePoint. So once and I'll link this this download in the description. So once I've authenticated to my tenant, I can start a new migration. I can select where I want to copy this from. So in this case, this will be a file share. I'll choose the file share that I want to copy this from. So if I go to PC and I locate test share 1, this is my cloud network drive share. I can select whether I want to migrate selected folders of file content or only the folder contents. Select next. Where I want to copy this data to, and there's a couple of different options here. So I'm going to select SharePoint. The URL of the site I want to migrate this to. And then the location. And once I'm happy with all of this selection, I can click next and then migrate. And that will migrate that data from my file share on Cloud Network Drive over to SharePoint. Now one thing to note is this process can take a little bit of time, so do bear with it. But once it's migrated, you should locate and see those files shat within your SharePoint site. If I go back to one I did earlier, I can locate my T site, go down to Documents, New Test Library, and these are my folders and files from my Cloud Network Drive share. So hopefully this video helps and runs through a couple of options to migrate your Cloud Network Drive data for your customers over to alternative solutions. Like I said, there's not one fits all solution. Your customer might have a bit more of a complex file structure. So if that is the case, please reach out to the Azure Practice team. You can do this via our email address, azurepractice@geocom.com. Alternatively, reach out to your account manager or a sales contact at Geocom to get in touch with the team. Thank you.